Eli Turner had lived on his Texas ranch for most of his life, and every morning felt almost the same. The sun rose slowly over the open fields, the cattle moved in calm groups near the fences, and the warm wind carried the familiar smell of dust and dry grass. Eli usually enjoyed the quiet of dawn. But on this particular morning, something felt different. It was too still, too silent, as if the land itself was holding its breath. He had been walking toward the southern fence line, planning to check the posts after last night's small storm. Nothing major had happened, but storms in Texas had a way of loosening the ground or shifting boards, and Eli liked to stay ahead of problems. He had asked Miguel, one of his trusted ranch hands, to start early and meet him there. Miguel was young, hard-working, and eager to prove himself, and Eli appreciated that. As Eli walked, he noticed a hawk circling above the rocky outcrop near the fence. Hawks usually meant rodents, and rodents often meant snakes nearby. The ranch wasn't new to snakes. They were just part of the land. Still, Eli kept his eyes open and careful as he approached the area. He was about halfway down the fence when he heard a faint sound that didn't match the usual morning noises. It wasn't the wind. It wasn't an animal. It was a voice, a struggling, uneven voice calling his name. Eli, Eli. At first he wasn't sure if he imagined it. But then it came again, clearer this time, carrying a mixture of fear and pain. Eli. Eli's heart jumped. He quickened his pace, then broke into a run. He followed the voice until he saw Miguel stumbling out from behind the rocks, his face pale and tense. Miguel's steps were uneven, and he was holding his leg with both hands, pressing hard as if trying to keep something inside. When Eli reached him, Miguel collapsed to one knee, breathing fast. His eyes were wide and filled with worry. "Something bit me," Miguel said, his voice shaking. Please remove the venom. It's getting bigger. It's really swollen." Eli immediately knelt beside him. He looked at Miguel's lower leg, and although he tried to stay calm, he felt a cold wave inside his chest. The skin around the bite was already puffing up, stretching tight, and turning a color that made Eli uneasy. He saw two small puncture marks, close together. They looked like the kind he had seen before on animals that got too close to rattlesnakes. But this time, it wasn't a cow. It wasn't a stray dog. It was Miguel. Eli swallowed hard and looked around, trying to spot the snake. But the rocks were thick with shadows, and snakes were experts at hiding. Miguel winced and gripped Eli's arm. "Please. You have to take the venom out. It hurts. It's spreading." Eli had heard that request before. Many people believed that cutting the wound and trying to suck the venom out was the right thing to do. Movies showed it, old stories repeated it, and even some ranchers swore by it. But Eli also knew that modern doctors said it wasn't safe, and it often didn't work the way people hoped. Still, seeing Miguel trembling and scared made Eli feel the weight of responsibility pressing on his shoulders. "How long ago did it happen?" Eli asked, trying to keep his voice steady. Maybe 5 minutes, Miguel said. "I didn't see it. I just felt something sharp. Then it burned. Then it swelled really fast. The swelling was fast, too fast." Eli rubbed his forehead, thinking hard. There was no cell service here. The nearest town was a long drive away. Every minute mattered. "Can you walk?" Eli asked gently. Miguel tried to stand, but the moment he put weight on his leg, he gasped and shook his head. Eli helped him sit down again. "Okay, just breathe. I'm here." Miguel's eyes glistened not from tears, but from fear. "Eli, please, don't let anything happen to me." That broke something inside Eli. He had known Miguel since he was a teenager. He had watched him grow stronger, more confident, always ready to take on challenges. Seeing him this vulnerable made Eli's chest tighten. Eli looked again at the bite. The swelling was moving upward, inch by inch. The skin around it looked hot and stressed. Something about it felt off, unfamiliar. He had seen rattlesnake bites before, But this one looked more intense. Miguel grabbed Eli's hand again. Please. Where the bite is. It's tight. You need to get the venom out. Eli felt torn. He didn't want to cause harm, but he didn't want to do nothing either. He wished he had cell service. He wished he had more supplies with him. He wished he wasn't standing miles away from help. All right, Eli said finally, his voice quiet but firm. I'll do what I can. But we're getting you to a doctor right after. Miguel nodded quickly, desperate for relief. Eli opened his small leather tool pouch. Inside he kept basic things, bandages, disinfectant, a pocket knife he sharpened every week, and a few other items. His hands trembled slightly as he took out the knife. He wiped it clean with disinfectant, then held it tightly. Stay still, he said softly. This might sting for a moment. Miguel nodded, jaw clenched. Eli made a small, careful opening near the bite, nothing deep, nothing aggressive. Just enough that he hoped he could help reduce pressure or remove anything close to the surface. His heart pounded as he worked. He had done similar things for animals before, but this was a human life depending on him. Miguel held on to Eli's shoulder, breathing sharply through the discomfort. A moment later, Eli leaned back, wiping sweat from his forehead. He wasn't confident. He wasn't sure. He just knew he had tried something instead of standing there helpless. But as soon as he looked at Miguel's leg again, he felt a cold shock move through him. The swelling didn't slow. It didn't calm. It seemed to be growing even faster now, creeping upward with troubling speed. Something wasn't right. Something was very wrong. Miguel's eyelids fluttered. Eli. I feel dizzy. Eli tightened his grip on Miguel's shoulders. Stay with me. Don't close your eyes. Miguel nodded weakly, but his breathing changed shallower, uneven. Eli's mind raced. They couldn't stay here another second. He stood up and swung Miguel's arm over his shoulders. Miguel tried to help lift himself but barely had the strength. Eli carried most of the weight as they moved toward the truck parked near the dirt road. Every step felt urgent. Every second felt heavy. Just a little more, Eli encouraged him. I've got you. You're going to be all right. Miguel didn't reply, but Eli felt him lean against him, trusting him fully. That trust made Eli push faster, even though fear tightened around his chest like a rope. When they reached the truck, Eli helped Miguel into the passenger seat as carefully as he could, making sure his leg was supported. Miguel leaned back against the seat, breathing softly, his face growing pale. Eli shut the door and rushed to the driver's side. His hands shook as he started the engine, but once it roared to life, he pushed the accelerator down and sped toward the highway. The wheels kicked up dust behind them. Hold on, Miguel, Eli said, glancing over. Stay awake, all right? Miguel nodded faintly, but his eyes drifted, as if he were fighting sleep. Eli's heart pounded harder with every mile. The open land stretched endlessly ahead, but it felt like he was driving through a tunnel of urgency, fear, and hope mixed together. He kept talking to keep Miguel awake, to keep himself focused, to keep the rising panic from taking over. You're strong, Miguel. You're tougher than you think. We're getting help. Just a little longer. You stay with me, you hear? Miguel's fingers twitched, and he whispered something Eli couldn't understand. Eli clenched the steering wheel. He wished the clinic were closer. He wished he had known exactly what to do. He wished this morning had stayed quiet and ordinary. But right now, all he could do was drive and hope. Hope that they would make it in time. Hope that Miguel's strength would carry him through. Hope that whatever had bitten him wasn't something beyond what they had dealt with before. As the truck sped down the long, dusty road, Eli kept glancing at Miguel. Fear mixed with determination. The rising sun cast long shadows across the land, and the day felt heavier than ever. Eli silently promised that he wouldn't stop not until Miguel was safe. No matter what, Eli kept both hands tight on the steering wheel as the truck raced down the dirt road. The sun was climbing higher, brightening the land, but nothing about the morning felt calm anymore. His heart thudded in his chest with every bump the truck hit. He kept glancing at Miguel, hoping to see some sign of improvement. But Miguel looked tired and unsteady. his head leaning slightly to one side. "Miguel, stay with me," Eli said, trying to keep his voice strong. "We're not far. You just have to keep breathing and stay awake." Miguel blinked slowly, as if each blink took effort. "I'm trying," he whispered. Eli pressed down on the gas pedal a little more. The engine hummed louder. Ahead, the long stretch of road shimmered under the growing heat, but the clinic still felt too far away. Eli's mind raced, pulling up memories of every first aid lesson he had ever heard, every story he had been told about dealing with emergencies. Each memory came with its own worry. He wished he had clearer answers. He wished he had known exactly what had bitten Miguel. The swelling on Miguel's leg had been the first sign that something unusual was happening. The speed of it was what truly unsettled Eli. He had seen swollen bites before, but this one had grown faster than anything he could remember. And even more troubling was the color and odd, deep tone that spread in uneven patches. He had tried to help Miguel earlier, but now fear crept over him again. He wasn't sure if what he had done helped or made anything harder. The thought weighed heavily on his mind. Miguel let out a slow breath. His hand rested on his leg, and his fingers twitched slightly, as if he was trying to feel what was happening. "It feels strange," he said softly. "I know," Eli replied. "We're going to let the doctors handle it. They'll know exactly what to do." Miguel nodded, though weakly. His breathing was lighter now, like each breath required more effort. Eli noticed and felt a knot tighten inside him. "You're doing good," Eli said, trying to keep the conversation going. "Just keep your eyes open. Tell me something, anything. What were you fixing on the fence when this all started?" Miguel closed his eyes for a brief moment, then opened them again. "The post. The one near the old cedar tree," he said slowly. "It was loose after the storm. I thought I could fix it quickly. I thought I could fix it quickly." Eli nodded. "You always try to get things done fast. That's one thing I admire about you." A faint smile touched Miguel's lips, though it faded almost instantly. "I didn't see it, Eli. I didn't even hear anything. I just felt something sharp, like a thorn. I didn't think it was serious at first." Eli swallowed hard. He had heard similar stories from others. Snakes could be perfectly silent, especially in cooler weather or early mornings. Many bites caught people by surprise, but something still didn't fit right with what he had seen. "After it happened, did you see anything move around you?" Eli asked. Miguel shook his head. "No. I just felt dizzy right after." Eli nodded again, more to himself this time. The dizziness bothered him. It felt too fast, too sudden. But he kept that thought inside. He didn't want Miguel worrying more. Instead, he kept talking. "When we get to the clinic, the nurses will check you right away. They'll help with the swelling, and the doctor will make sure you get whatever treatment you need." Miguel's eyes fluttered. "I trust you, Eli," he murmured. Eli felt those words sink deep. Trust was something he valued more than just about anything. Being responsible for someone in a moment like this carried a weight he couldn't ignore. He reached over briefly and placed a steadying hand on Miguel's shoulder before putting both hands back on the wheel. "I won't let you down." For a moment, the truck was quiet, except for the sound of the engine and the tires rolling over gravel. The land stretched out wide around them, dry grass, long fences, scattered trees, and distant hills that shimmered in the heat. It should have been a peaceful drive, but instead, it felt like a race against time. Eli took a deep breath and forced himself to think clearly. The more he thought about the swelling he had seen, the more questions he had. He tried to match it with what he'd seen before: rattlesnake bites on cattle, minor bites on stray animals, injuries from thorns or sharp rocks. Nothing matched exactly. The road curved slightly as the truck approached a stretch of smoother terrain. Eli took advantage of it to drive even faster. Wind rushed through the small crack in the window, filling the truck with a warm, dusty smell. Suddenly, Miguel shifted slightly and let out a small sound of discomfort. Eli turned his head quickly. "You okay?" he asked. Miguel's voice was thin. "My leg. It feels tight. Like something is spreading." Eli nodded, though inside he felt his concern rising again. "Just a little longer." "We're getting closer." Miguel's hand trembled slightly on his lap. Eli noticed it out of the corner of his eye. He wanted to reach out again, but he needed both hands on the wheel. To distract Miguel, Eli started talking about memories, hoping conversation could keep him alert. "Hey, remember the day we fixed the north gate and it took us twice as long because the cattle kept wandering over to watch us like we were putting on a show?" A weak laugh escaped Miguel. They were curious. They were nosy," Eli corrected with a small smile. "You kept telling them to go away, but they just stared at you like you were the entertainment for the day." Miguel gave another soft laugh, though this one seemed to take more effort. "Those were good days," he whispered. "These will be good days too," Eli said, determined. "We're not done yet. Not even close." He looked ahead again. The small highway that led to the clinic was just a few minutes away now. Once he reached it, he could drive much faster. The sun had risen fully now, spreading bright light across the land. It made the road clearer, but it also made the air feel hotter. The heat pressed into the truck, adding to the heaviness Eli already felt inside. He turned on the air, hoping to cool Miguel down a bit. Miguel shifted again, his eyes half-lidded. "Eli, are you sure we're close?" "Yes," Eli replied quickly. "I'll tell you when I see the highway. Just breathe slow and steady. I'm watching the road, but I'm watching you too." Miguel nodded gently, his movements growing slower by the minute. Eli's thoughts grew louder as silence stretched between them again. He couldn't stop thinking about what he had done earlier. He replayed every moment in his mind. Miguel, asking him for help, begging him to do something. The pressure of making a decision. The fear of doing the wrong thing. He had tried to help with all the knowledge he had, but now the uncertainty made his stomach twist. "What if I made it worse?" he whispered to himself. Though not loud enough for Miguel to hear, the guilt sat heavy, pushing on him like a weight he couldn't shake off. But he pushed those thoughts back. There wasn't time to doubt himself now. He had to focus on getting Miguel to help. Finally, the highway appeared at the end of the dirt road. Eli felt a small burst of relief. "There it is," he said, his voice more hopeful. "Once we get onto the highway, we'll be there before you know it." Miguel murmured something too soft to understand. Eli turned onto the paved road sharply but safely, pushing the truck faster now that the surface was smooth. The clinic was still some miles away, but it was a straight drive from here. The wind whipped harder against the windows. The engine hummed loudly. The world outside seemed to blur as Eli focused on one thing, getting help as fast as possible. "Miguel," he said gently, "tell me if you feel anything different. Anything at all." Miguel took a slow breath. "I feel tired," he said, "and a little cold." Eli frowned. Cold wasn't something he liked hearing. "I'm turning up the air," he said, lowering the cool airflow. "Just breathe slow. All right?" Miguel nodded, though his movements were small and sluggish. Eli kept checking on him every few seconds. The muscles in his back were tight from worry. His palms felt damp against the steering wheel. "You're not alone," Eli said quietly. "I'm right here." As the truck continued down the highway, Eli could finally see a small structure on the horizon, a cluster of buildings surrounded by a few trees. It wasn't much, but it was exactly what they needed. "There it is," Eli said, relief flooding his voice. "The clinic." But when he glanced at Miguel again, he noticed something that made his heart skip. Miguel's eyes were half open, but unfocused. His breathing was slower now. His head leaned more heavily against the seat. Eli's chest tightened. "We're almost there," he said, trying to sound steady. "Stay awake, Miguel. Talk to me." Miguel lifted his eyelids slightly. "Trying," he whispered. Eli pressed the accelerator as much as he safely could. The truck sped toward the clinic, dust trailing behind. Every second now felt like the most important one. When he finally turned into the gravel parking lot, he stopped the truck quickly and jumped out. He rushed around to the passenger side, opened the door, and carefully helped Miguel out. "We made it," Eli said softly, guiding him. "You're going to be okay." Miguel leaned heavily against him, trying to stay upright. Eli wrapped an arm around his back, supporting him completely. Together, step by step, they moved toward the entrance. Eli didn't know what the doctor would say, and he didn't know what had really bitten Miguel, but he was ready to face whatever came next. All he knew was that he was not going to give up on him. Not now. Not ever. Eli pushed open the clinic door with his shoulder while keeping a firm grip on Miguel, who leaned heavily against him. The air inside was cool and smelled faintly of medicine and something clean, almost like fresh linen. A nurse behind the counter looked up instantly. She didn't hesitate for even a second. One look at Miguel's pale face and unsteady posture was enough. "Come with me," she said quickly, stepping around the counter and guiding them toward a room down the hallway. Eli felt a wave of relief. Someone else was finally taking control. Someone who knew more than he did. Miguel tried to take a step on his own but nearly stumbled. Eli caught him under the arms. "It's okay," Eli murmured. "We're here now. You're safe." Miguel nodded slightly, though his eyes seemed unfocused. The nurse opened the door to a small examination room and motioned for them to enter. Once inside, she gently helped Eli ease Miguel onto the examination bed. "What happened?" she asked, her voice calm but urgent. "Something bit him," Eli said. "We were near the rocks on my ranch. He didn't see it. But the swelling, it came fast." "How long ago?" the nurse asked, checking Miguel's pulse. "Maybe 30 minutes, Eli replied, though the minutes had blurred together in his mind. The nurse nodded and immediately called for the doctor. A moment later, a man in a white coat entered, his expression serious and focused. He was tall, with glasses that slid down slightly as he moved quickly to Miguel's side. "I'm Dr. Harris," he said. "Tell me exactly what happened." Eli explained everything he knew. The fence repair, Miguel's sudden cry, the swelling, the dizziness, the fast changes, and the desperate drive to the clinic. As he spoke, Dr. Harris examined Miguel's leg, lifting it carefully and studying the swollen area. But the moment Dr. Harris saw the bite and the spreading discoloration, something changed in his face. His eyes widened, just slightly, and his expression shifted from professional concentration to something like concern, maybe even shock. Eli noticed immediately. "What is it?" he asked. "Is something wrong?" Dr. Harris didn't answer right away. He leaned closer to study the pattern of swelling. He pressed gently on the skin around the bite, watching Miguel's reaction. Miguel flinched softly, but it wasn't from sharp pain, more from the strange tightness that had taken over his lower leg. "Can you feel your toes?" Dr. Harris asked. Miguel moved them slowly. "A little," he whispered. "They feel heavy." "And your breathing?" the doctor continued. "It feels shallow," Miguel said. Dr. Harris nodded thoughtfully, then turned to the nurse. "We need to run labs immediately," he said. "Let's get a sample right now." The nurse hurried out to get supplies. Eli stepped closer. "Doctor, what does this mean? You look like you recognize something." Dr. Harris didn't answer right away. Instead, he gently positioned Miguel's leg so he could see the entire area clearly. The swelling had risen farther up the leg than before, and the unusual color was spreading in uneven patterns. Finally, the doctor straightened and looked at Eli. "This doesn't look like a common rattlesnake bite," he said quietly. Eli felt the air leave his chest. "Then, what is it?" "We'll know more once we test the blood," Dr. Harris replied. "But I need to be honest, this pattern of swelling and color is something I've only seen with certain types of bites, ones that are much more serious." Eli's throat tightened. He felt as if invisible pressure was building around him. Miguel looked up weakly. "Am I going to be okay?" Dr. Harris placed a hand on Miguel's shoulder. "We're going to take very good care of you. Right now, you're in the right place." The nurse returned with the supplies, and the doctor drew a blood sample gently. Miguel watched quietly, too tired to react much. When the nurse left again, Dr. Harris turned back to Eli. "You said you didn't see the snake," he said. "No," Eli replied. "There were rocks everywhere. It was probably hiding. I thought it was a rattler, but I don't know for sure." Dr. Harris nodded slowly. "Mojave greens have been seen farther and farther across Texas in recent years," he said softly, as if thinking aloud. "If this was one of those, the venom can act very differently." Eli had heard of them before, stories mostly. Stories that people told in hushed tones. Mojave greens were known for venom that acted quickly on the body, affecting not just swelling, but also nerves and breathing. Eli felt his stomach twist. "Doctor, is that what you think this is?" "I can't confirm without the lab results," Dr. Harris replied, choosing his words carefully. "But the early signs match what I've seen in similar cases." Miguel looked between them, his expression foggy but worried. Is that bad?" he whispered. Dr. Harris leaned down and spoke gently. "It means we need to act fast. And we will." Eli stepped back and ran a hand over his face. He felt responsible. Every choice he had made on the ranch played in his mind again. The hesitation. The decision to try and help. The rush to get Miguel to the truck. He wondered if he should have done more. If he should have done something different. Dr. Harris noticed the tension on Eli's face. "You did the right thing bringing him here," he said firmly. "That was the most important decision. Thank you for watching." The Ponsided. And Hearted absoluted. "For the self," Eli nodded, though guilt still tugged at him. The room grew quiet for a moment, except for the steady beeping of a small monitor the nurse had attached to Miguel. Miguel's breathing was shallow, but steady. Less than 10 minutes later, the nurse returned with a printed sheet in her hand. She handed it to Dr. Harris, who scanned it quickly. His expression changed again, this time more serious, more urgent. "What does it say?" Eli asked. Dr. Harris looked up slowly. "The venom in his bloodstream is consistent with a Mojave green." Eli felt his knees weaken slightly. He held onto the edge of a nearby counter for support. Miguel blinked, trying to understand. "What does that mean for me?" "It means we're going to get you treatment immediately," the doctor replied. "This type of venom affects nerves as well as tissue. But you're here now, and we have what you need." He turned to the nurse. "Prepare the anti-venom. Call the regional hospital for a transfer. He needs monitoring that we can't provide here." The nurse nodded and hurried away once again. Miguel's breathing hitched slightly. "Eli, are you still here?" "I'm right here," Eli said, stepping close and taking Miguel's hand. "I'm not going anywhere." Miguel gave a slow nod, comforted by the presence of someone he trusted. Dr. Harris adjusted the equipment around the bed. "The good news is that you reached us quickly," he said. "Time matters a lot in cases like this, and you made it here much faster than most people in rural areas do." Eli nodded, though he still felt the weight of what he had done earlier. Dr. Harris looked at him again, as if reading his thoughts. "You did your best," he said quietly. "And you got him here in time. Remember that." Eli swallowed hard. "How long until the transfer arrives?" "I've called for a helicopter," Dr. Harris replied. "It should be here soon. They'll take him to a larger hospital where specialists can monitor him closely." Miguel opened his eyes a little wider. "A helicopter?" he whispered. "That's right," the doctor said gently. "It's the fastest way to get you the care you need." Eli placed a steadying hand on Miguel's shoulder. "You're going to be all right. They know what they're doing." The nurse returned with the anti-venom, and Dr. Harris began preparing it carefully. When he administered it, Miguel flinched slightly, but the doctor spoke to him in a calm voice, explaining each step so he wouldn't be afraid. Eli watched everything closely, feeling a mixture of relief and worry. He trusted the doctor, but his heart still raced with uncertainty. The room felt too small, too quiet between the sounds of the machines and the soft voices. A few minutes later, they heard the distant hum of helicopter blades approaching. The sound grew louder, vibrating through the walls. Miguel looked toward the window with barely open eyes. "They're here," Eli said softly. Nurses and paramedics came rushing in with practiced efficiency. They greeted Eli with quick nods of reassurance as they prepared Miguel for transport. Miguel tried to lift his head, but Eli gently placed a hand on his shoulder. "Just rest," he said. "They're going to take good care of you." As they secured Miguel onto the stretcher, he reached toward Eli with a tired hand. Eli caught it immediately. "Thank you," Miguel whispered, "for not leaving me." Eli's throat tightened. "I wouldn't leave you," he said, his voice low but steady. "Not now. Not ever." The paramedics carried Miguel out through the door, guiding the stretcher carefully toward the landing pad behind the clinic. Eli followed until they reached the outside area where the helicopter waited, its blades turning steadily. The sound was loud, but the sight of it brought a strange sense of comfort. Help was truly here. Eli stood a few steps away as the paramedics loaded Miguel inside. Miguel looked out at him one last time before the doors closed. Eli lifted a hand in a small, reassuring wave. Miguel did the same, though weakly. The helicopter rose slowly, lifting into the bright sky. Eli watched it until it became a distant shape, then disappeared beyond the horizon. He remained standing there for a moment, the wind from the helicopter blades fading into stillness around him. His heart felt heavy, but also hopeful. Miguel was in good hands now, and whatever happened next, Eli knew he had done everything he could. When he finally turned and walked back toward the clinic, the quiet morning felt different, like the world had shifted in some deep, invisible way. But one thing inside him stayed unshakable. He wasn't giving up. Not on Miguel. Not on understanding what had truly happened. And not on making sure nothing like this ever happened again. Eli stood outside the clinic long after the helicopter disappeared from sight. The warm breeze brushed against him, but he felt none of it. His mind replayed the entire morning, over and over. The moment Miguel called his name, the sight of the swelling, the drive to the clinic, the doctor's worried expression. It all felt unreal, and yet he knew it had been the longest, most stressful day he'd lived through in years. He walked back into the clinic, exhausted and unsure what to do next. Dr. Harris met him near the hallway, removing his gloves and giving Eli a small nod of encouragement. "He's in good hands now," the doctor said. "They'll monitor him closely. He has a strong chance, because you brought him quickly." Eli nodded, though he didn't entirely believe it yet. "Thank you, doctor. For everything." "You did your part," Dr. Harris replied gently. Then he added, "You should get some rest. Stress can take a toll too," but rest felt impossible to Eli. He drove home slowly, the ranch road stretching before him like a long memory he didn't want to revisit. Every fence post, every cattle shadow, every patch of dry grass reminded him of Miguel, of his laughter, his hard-working spirit, and the morning they had just lived through. When he finally reached the house, he sat in the truck for several minutes, letting silence settle around him. He rested his forehead on the steering wheel and breathed deeply, trying to push away the heavy feelings pressing down on him. Later that evening, Eli called the regional hospital. They told him Miguel had arrived safely, that he was receiving the anti-venom, and that his condition was serious but stable. The nurse on the phone spoke gently, reassuring him that Miguel was being watched closely by a team who handled cases like this regularly. Eli thanked her, hung up, and let out a breath he hadn't realized he was holding. Stable. That word gave him a small sense of relief, maybe not enough to erase worry, but enough to help him sleep a little that night. The next morning, Eli woke early, though he hadn't slept much. He felt pulled toward the ranch like always, but also toward the hospital, toward Miguel. Torn between his responsibilities and his concern, he decided to make the drive to the hospital after checking on the cattle. The ranch felt different as he moved through it. The land didn't look changed, but Eli felt changed. He noticed every shadow between rocks, every hole near the fence line, every place where danger could have been hiding. He found himself imagining how close Miguel must have been standing to the snake, how quietly it must have been waiting. The thought sent a chill through him. After spending the morning making sure everything on the ranch was in order, Eli cleaned up quickly and drove toward the hospital. The drive felt longer than it really was, every mile filled with worry and hope. When he reached the waiting room outside Miguel's unit, he could hear the soft beeping of machines through the partially open door. A nurse approached him and smiled kindly. "You must be Mr. Turner," she said. "Miguel talked about you a little." Eli's heart lifted slightly. "How is he doing?" "He's been responding to the treatment," the nurse said. "He's still weak and tired, but he's improving." "May I see him?" Eli asked. "Of course," she said, guiding him to the door. "He's awake now." Eli stepped into the room quietly. Miguel lay in the bed, his eyes half open but clearer than before. His leg was wrapped gently, and the machines around him hummed softly. He looked tired, but alive, more alive than Eli had dared to hope for. When Miguel saw Eli, a small smile touched his lips. "Hey," he whispered. Eli walked to his side, careful not to disturb the equipment. "Hey yourself," he said with a soft smile. "You gave us all a scare." Miguel chuckled weakly. "I scared myself too." Eli pulled a chair close and sat down. "How are you feeling?" Miguel took a slow breath. "Better. Still tired. My leg feels heavy. But the doctor says that's normal." Eli nodded. "I talked to Dr. Harris. He explained everything. They said you're improving." That's what they told me too," Miguel said. "I don't remember much from yesterday. Just you, helping me, and then the clinic, and then the helicopter." "You were brave," Eli said. "You handled everything better than most folks would." Miguel shook his head gently. "I just didn't want to fall asleep." Eli sighed, the guilt he had carried rising to the surface. "Miguel, I keep thinking about what I did out there. I wasn't sure if I was helping. I didn't know if I made things better or worse." Miguel looked at him with steady eyes. "Eli, you didn't leave me. That's what mattered. You didn't let me face it alone." Those words eased something inside Eli, something that had weighed him down since the moment he had seen the swelling. He reached over and patted Miguel's shoulder gently. "You're going to be okay," Eli said softly. "But we need to make changes when you get back. We need to make the ranch safer." Miguel nodded. "I was thinking that too. I never thought we had those kinds of snakes here." "Me neither," Eli admitted. "But the doctor said they're moving into new areas. It's time we learn more and get ahead of things." They spent the next few minutes talking quietly. Miguel shared what he remembered, and Eli listened closely. Nurses came in and out, checking on the equipment, adjusting things gently. The room felt peaceful compared to the chaos of the previous day. By the afternoon, Miguel grew tired, so Eli let him rest. He stepped out into the hallway, feeling a mixture of relief and determination. He wasn't done yet, there was more to learn, more to prepare for. Over the next several days, Eli visited Miguel regularly. Each visit brought new signs of improvement. Miguel's color returned, his breathing strengthened, and the swelling in his legs slowly began to go down. The doctors praised his progress and reminded Eli of how important it had been that he reached help so quickly. Eli listened carefully to every update, grateful each time he heard the word, better. While Miguel healed, Eli began learning more about Mojave greens. He spoke to wildlife experts, read articles, and asked questions. He discovered that climate changes and shifting temperatures had been pushing the snakes into new regions. Sightings were becoming more common in areas where people didn't expect them. That knowledge unsettled him, but it also gave him direction. He created new safety rules for the ranch. He planned training sessions for everyone working there, teaching them how to spot signs of snakes, how to stay careful near rocks and tall grass, and what to do in case anyone was bitten. He added medical kits to every truck and every major work area. He even called the county wildlife office to schedule a visit so they could examine the ranch and help locate potential snake risk areas. Eli wasn't going to let what happened to Miguel remain just a frightening memory. He was determined to turn it into something meaningful, something that could protect others in the future. When Miguel was finally discharged from the hospital, Eli drove to pick him up. Miguel's steps were slow but steady, and he walked with the help of a cane the hospital had provided. Eli helped him into the truck gently. "You ready to go home?" Eli asked. Miguel looked out the window toward the wide Texas land. "More than ready," he said. As they drove back to the ranch, Miguel looked thoughtful. "You know," he said slowly, "I keep thinking about that morning. How fast everything happened. How scared I was. And how calm you stayed." Eli shook his head. "I wasn't calm," he said honestly. "Inside, I was scared too, but I knew I had to help you. That was the only thing I could focus on." Miguel smiled. "It means a lot, Eli." When they reached the ranch, several ranch hands came out to greet Miguel, happy to see him safe. Miguel smiled shyly, touched by their concern. Eli helped him settle into the small guest room near the main house so he could recover comfortably. Over the following weeks, Miguel regained strength little by little. He would sit outside in the evenings, watching the cattle and enjoying the warm breeze. Eli often joined him, the two of them talking about ranch work, life, and how quickly things could change. One evening, as the sun painted the sky orange and gold, Miguel looked at Eli and said, "I think maybe something good came from all this." Eli raised a brow. "How do you figure?" "You changed things around here," Miguel said. "You made it safer. You taught everyone new things, and you took what happened and used it to protect others." Eli looked out at the land, the fences stretching into the distance. "Maybe. But I just wanted to make sure nothing like that ever happens again." "And?" Miguel nodded. "And that's exactly why something good came from it." Eli let those words settle in the warm evening air. They felt true in a quiet, steady way. The ranch wasn't the same as before. It was safer now, more prepared, and Eli carried a deeper sense of responsibility, one shaped by fear, hope, and the determination to protect the people who worked beside him. Miguel eventually returned to his full strength, though he never forgot the experience. Neither did Eli. The memory stayed with both of them, not as something to fear, but as a reminder of how quickly life could change and how important courage, trust, and quick action could be. And from that day on, every time Eli walked the ranch in the early morning light, he looked over the land not with fear, but with a new understanding. The world could surprise you. It could challenge you, but with knowledge, care, and the right people beside you, even the hardest moments could lead to something safer, wiser, and stronger.